All right, lads and ladies, welcome to Big Dave's Big Review with your mate, Big Dave. Now, before I get into this week's review, I thought you'd all like a little update. As you know, when I'm not reviewing the latest films and television shows, I run Big Dave's plumbing, repairs, and tyre services with my apprentice, Little Chris. Well, the other day, we were joined by a work experience student, and believe it or not, he's only called Chris as well. And get this, he's even smaller than Little Chris. So we've taken to calling him Micro Chris. Anyways, since the work van's broke, I invited Little Chris and Micro Chris round my gaff, cranked on the home cinema and Dolby Surround, and watched this week's episode of House of the Dragon. So here's my thoughts on Season 1, Episode 9, The Green Council. Cue the theme tune!
Big Dave's Big Reviews. Big Dave's Big Reviews.
Episode 9 kicks off with the Red Keep looking a bit on the empty side, while some lovely music plays in the background. King Viserys only popped his clogs a few hours ago, but already we get a real sense of loss and emptiness. Paddy, you did yourself proud, mate. The show won't be the same without you. Next, we see the Green Council meeting, and boy, is there a lot going on. I mean, let's just say I wouldn't fancy taking a minute for it. Firstly, Sir Kristen Cole racks up another notch for the old body count by introducing Lord Beesbury's face to the table in a less than gentle manner. Sir Westerling quits as Lord Commander, and I do hope that's not the last time we see him, as I've enjoyed Graham McTavish's time on the screen. Ain't enough strong silent types around these days, if you ask me. Ultimately, the council discusses nicking the crown and decides, yeah, why not? Now, I've taken part in some pretty ropey meetings in my time. Usually, it's a parent-teacher association meeting after I've had a few too many beers, but this small council tastes the biscuit. I mean, if ever these plums needed a clear sign that they might not be suited to rule in the Seven Kingdoms, this is it. I mean, when you've had multiple accusations of treason, a resignation, and a murder before the first round of snacks has even been brought out, then you're probably not onto a winner. We then have a little game of Where's Aegon, resulting in half the Kingsguard and Prince Aemond heading off into town looking for the little bugger. And a quick word on Aemond, I was made up to see they cast Ewan Mitchell to play the older version of him, as the guy did a bang-up job as Osferth in The Last Kingdom, and looks the bloody part here too. He's a mini Damon to a T. The hunt for Aegon doesn't turn up at Aegon, but it does turn up that he's a nasty little bastard. Eric and Arik, the twin Kingsguard, check out Aegon's favourite child fighting pit. Not a sentence I ever thought I'd find myself saying of an evening. Aemon tells Sir Criston that whilst Aegon studied the brothel, he studied the blade, so he should be king. Oh, and because he's got a bigger dragon. Sophie's dad for a peep show then leads a two-person rebellion against the Hightower usurpers in a scene I found pretty stupid. I mean, the leaders of so many houses aren't just going to walk straight into the Red Keep without a single member of their household guard. But let's assume they're all a bunch of muppets and they did just that. Surely the Hightowers can't just disappear a bunch of lords and ladies who probably have many loyal soldiers just waiting for their return in the city. Micro Chris, our work experience student, is studying physics or history or something like that. Anyway, he said, it's unrealistic to expect these nobles to break their oaths to King Viserys, because being an oathbreaker in the medieval period that this show is based on was just about the worst thing a person could be. Since they really had written agreements, oaths were used to guarantee pretty much everything. An oathbreaker would be an outcast, basically unable to do business with anyone. To which me and little Chris nodded along politely. Queen Alicent then tells Princess Rhaenys that she should have been queen instead of Viserys, and they both agree that women are great and men are bad. This is ironic, really, considering Alicent is currently trying to install her completely unfit son Aegon as king over Princess Rhaenyra, who is both clearly more suited to this role and also a woman. I mean, did the regular writers take the afternoon off when these two scenes were written? Is a little consistency too much to ask for? Anyway, I'm sure they're all doing their best, so let's move on. We're then introduced again to the White Worm. I wasn't 100% sure I understood everything she said, but it seems like she wants to put an end to the child fighting pits. So good for her. I'm getting serious Varys vibes from Game of Thrones about her, so I'm sure she'll be popping up in subsequent episodes to push the plot along. Or maybe not, if Larys has his way. And on that note, this episode saw more than the regular amount of intrigue. What with the White Worm, more mentions of the beast beneath the boards of the Red Keep by Helena, and now Larys's little speech about a web of spies watching Alicent and co. The next bit flew over me head, but Micro Chris pointed out that Larys was referring to Mysaria here, who we think is the White Worm, and that Alicent was giving him the green light via some very sexy footy action to kill her, which I think we see later via the burning house scene. I wasn't sure, but Micro seems like a bright little lad, so I'll trust him on this one. So anyway, the rat boy, Lord Larys, it turns out has a big old foot fetish. Listen, far be it from me to judge how another bloke gets his jollies, but shaking hands with the milkman while staring at a girl's feet just ain't for me. Little Chris said the show missed the opportunity for some good old female nudity here, but don't worry, ladies, I delivered a righteous slap to him on your behalf. After a bit of a ruckus, Aegon is captured by his brother and the ageless Christian Cole so that they can deliver him to Mummy. Now, I must admit, I thought they were going to top him right there and then on the streets, North London style, but I was wrong. This scene sees Eric or Arik, don't ask me which, failing to support the other one in a fight over the possession of Aegon. Whilst Christian takes care of one of the twin Kingsguard, Aemond easily overpowers his brother Aegon. Micro Chris said something about this scene representing the complex nature of brotherly relationships, but I thought he was being a pillock. Either way, there's some lovely swordplay, a little bit of action, just to keep the episode moving along. Lovely. We then see a scene between Alicent and her son Aegon. Aegon has made it pretty clear he doesn't want to be king and that it'd probably be a terrible one, to which I'm sure we all agree. Now, he knows Viserys would never wish for him to succeed him, despite what his mum's telling him, and really, you have to feel for the lad a bit here. All he's really looking for is a bit of acceptance. He knows that can never come from his father now that he's dead, but he still asks Alicent if she loves him. Now, I don't know about you, but her replying, "You imbecile," even though she said it with a slight smile, felt like she was just dodging saying, "Yes, of course I love you, son." It's basically what I experience every night when I tell Mrs. Big Dave that I love her, and she replies, "Oh, thanks, Big Dave." Still, moving on. It was kind of nice to see Aegon finally getting some love and recognition from the crowd at his coronation, although I suspect the Goldcloaks had made it pretty clear to them that they'd better cheer or else. Either way, I think it's clear Aegon went from not wanting to be king to wanting to be king, just so he gets the love his parents never showed him. As I say, you could almost feel sorry for the little bugger if it wasn't for the sexual assaults, terrible personality, abandonment of his bastard children, or, loving the child fighting pits. Anyway, back to the plot. Princess Rhaenys Scarpers, which given what a shit show the city has become within the span of a few hours, is a decision I highly support. But she only goes and ends up at Aegon's coronation. I mean, Viserys' body is still warm, and these green lot are already crowning his successor. Now, if there's one thing Big Dave knows about, it's rush jobs. They never end well, and usually in my case, in small claims court. And we see the same thing happen here, as Rhaenys and her dragon Melis come barging in through the wall. Micro Chris said, "It's a touch convenient that Rhaenys keeps a full set of armour in the dragon pit changing rooms," but I told him she looked wicked, so shut it. As always, it's the working class getting a muller in here, as Melis smashes through the floor of the dragon pit, probably killing a few hundred of the great unwashed without any hint of a consequence. Ah, monarchy. Rhaenys then has the opportunity to flambe the entire Green faction, but chooses to fly off instead. Don't ask me why, I couldn't tell you. But I guess had she done so, the show might not have needed a second season, so good for her. Right, so here's my final thoughts on the episode. It was always going to be a nightmare for the writers of episode 9. They had to follow an absolute banger of an episode the previous week and get all the storylines in place for the season finale coming up in episode 10. And to be fair on them, I think they struggled a bit. I've highlighted some of the scenes I found puzzling, and how some of the writing had the same consistency as that knockoff paint I get from that dodgy bloke down the road. Actually, come to think of it, some of the CGI in this episode looked about as convincing as my average paint job as well. But still, the show's owed enough credit in my book, so I won't bang on about this stuff, especially since the music and acting continues to hit the mark. And I have to single out Olivia Cook for some praise here. I didn't really take to her portrayal of Alison Hightower initially, but she's definitely won me over since. She's somehow retaining my sympathy despite me disagreeing with pretty much every single action her character's taken. I liked her in episode 8, but think she was really great in this episode. Probably helped by the fact that some of the usual scene stealers were not included in this episode. I'm looking at you, Matt Smith. I guess I could best sum up this episode as a bit of a shambles. There's some good bits, some less good bits, and one disturbing feety wanky bit. Now don't get the wrong idea. I really enjoyed this episode, despite a few gripes. So don't bother giving the aggro to Big Dave. I've read on the interwebs that some people even think this is the best episode of the season. Obviously they're wrong, but they're not hurting anyone, so let them be wrong in peace, I say. But regardless, me and the lads can't wait for next week's finale, and I hope you lot are all excited too. Well, lads and ladies, that's my thoughts for the week, so it's about time I thank you all for joining me. If you could be a diamond and subscribe to the channel, that would be mustard. Oh, and give that like button a wallop whilst you're at it too. I wish you lovely lot all the best. Until next time.